Innsbruck in Austria, Saturday morning, and the second race weekend for the BMW IBSF Women's Monobob World Series. This brand new Olympic discipline coming to full fruit in the last 2 years, running into the Beijing Games. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to a snowy Innsbruck.
Welcome
a few centimetres of snow overnight. Track work has been going at it hard since pre-dawn to clear the track for our 25 competitors from 15 nations. I'm Martin Haven, with me John Morgan, getting ready to watch the action, John. And if skeleton yesterday was unpredictable, I think the monobob will be equally hard to call.
And the track, well, the track's been around since the 1976 Winter Olympic Games in Innsbruck, Austria, and hasn't changed much. A few roofs on it, but it's pretty much the same as it was. A lot of people have learned how to slide in this track. Cynthia Appiah, the Canadian athlete, has got the start record here. And up here, the speeds are slow. And, you know, you can't make any mistakes. You know, this long straightaway to a Kreisel, 280 degree whip around, you exit underneath where you went in, and curve 8. 9, long straightaway into 10. This is a challenge. Into this labyrinth 3/4 combination, everybody's got to have one. Through and down, lower Nolte's got the record. Athletes got a little different atmosphere to warm up in.
Bis zum Start. Und die Kehrmannschaften bitte die Bahn verlassen. Kehrmannschaften aus der Bahn. Und Achtung, Startfreigabe erfolgt. Es geht los, meine Damen und Herren. Schönen guten Morgen zum Monobob-Rennen der Frauen. Start Nummer 1.
So the first of our competitors for this second race of the season in the Women's Monobob World Series. Ying Qing of China, 24-year-old. Last week was her first official monobob race, so her second encounter. So 6:09, it gives us an indication perhaps of what we should be expecting from the start. And the women bobsleigh competitors, like the men, have to split their training runs between two disciplines. With the men, it's 2-man and 4-man, and they tend to concentrate a little more on the one that they think they have a better opportunity with. For the women, they'll have to split their time between monobob and their regular 2-seat bobsleds. So Qingying learning this track for the first time and learning monobob as well. I'm sure she's had plenty of trips in Beijing to learn the sled, but it's a different deal here. There's Pierre Ludes, the coach. So 56.41. Let's see where that stacks up. May not be our fastest time, if last week is any indication. She was 24th in our field of 25 athletes. see snow falling off the roof. Luckily, they're falling out of the track. Exit to corner 9, really having to haul it off. You could see the runners there working very hard indeed. Lots of steering. These sleds much lighter than a regular bob and a little more tail happy. Next up, Great Britain's Misha McNeil. Finished 18th last week. She was 5th in the first World Cup race here last year, 12th in the second, 13th place in the World Championships. She has got quite a lot of monobob experience though. This is her 7th race in these sleds. 6:17. And of course, with no brakeman to help you, it is all down to the driver to produce the speed at the start. 800s behind Yingqing of China at the start. She's bringing it down though. And she should be able to drive herself into a lead over the Chinese slider. Finished inside the top 20 last week. Just brings it down a little early, bounces around on the exit. Here she is now in the green. Decent exit out of corner 9, little tap to set up for the big sweeping turn 10. And this is where you fire yourself down into the lower labyrinth. 700ths of a second up. Well, it's not going to put her in medal contention. She should be 1500ths ahead of the line. There's Coach Lee Johnson, 56.31. Again, that is likely to leave her down at the bottom of the top 20. It's a fairly short learning curve for all of these drivers, heading into the Olympic Games with only 2 seasons experience. Came out a little early and just got bounced around. She was offline, and again here, down in the ditch. And the driver's right needed to be on the left. Third of our 25 sliders this morning, Frenchwoman Margot Boch. She finished 17th, just ahead of Misha McNeil, the current leader in last week's race. It's only her 4th run in a race in the monobob. In the first World Cup race here, she finished in 9th. She was 8th in St. Moritz. So she had 2 monobob races last season. These sleds are all a spec sled built in Bavaria by a high-tech company that traditionally does motorsport equipment and motorsport builds. 6:06, quickest start so far for Margot Boch. And best exit velocity as well. Down into turn 3. And then into this upper labyrinth, 4, 5 and 6. Where the loose start comes in, the women and doubles loose start. A little run down into the Kreisel. Exit the 6 really controls your speed all the way down the run. Again, just a fraction flat coming off the Kreisel. 1200s up on Misha McNeil, but not quite as good speed as the British sled. Again, the little tap from 9 to 10. Keeping it neat and tidy through the labyrinth, not getting too squirrely. Sleds have a habit of breaking away at the tail. 56.2. So she has an 1100ths of a second advantage. Finished in 17th place last week, just 1 spot ahead of Misha McNeil. We're having a little bit of communication problem at the moment with John Morgan in Lake Placid. But no communication problems here with Margot Boch. Looked like she was fairly well on top of that. Last year, when we were watching these sleds, they were all fairly much of a handful. But it does look as though the coaches, the engineers, the drivers have got their head a lot more around what you need to do to set these up. It was an entirely new learning experience for everybody last year. They have very different demands from a 2-seat sled. Three sleds down in the first heat. Race 2 of the Women's Monobob World Series here in Innsbruck in Austria. And because it's a snowy weekend, every third sled, they will be sweeping the snow out of the track, blowing it out of the start grooves. So that's the delay momentarily for Majestic Segen. There's Margot Boch. And her teammates helping out with the sled. She'll be competing tomorrow morning in the women's race, as will almost everybody in the field. This is Majestic Segen. Majestic winner of the first Monobob World Series race of the year. Last year, that was in Winterberg. And she was 5th in the second race here in Innsbruck. Didn't do all the races in Innsbruck. She did 4 Monobob World Series races last year. Her 5th was last week. This is her 6th start then. 12th place in the World Championships in the Monobob. And last week in the top 10. Very different rhythm for the driver to try and use the body weight to break the inertia of the sled. Not rocking the sled, but rocking herself backwards and forwards. Leaps in over the seat. Some athletes prefer to step into the sled and step over the seat. She vaulted in. And as you land going forwards, hopefully adding a little bit of energy to the sled rather than removing any. Nice top section. Just a little wide, maybe going into 4. Top speed into the Kreisel and a good exit out. That's the cleanest exit we've seen so far, and that will build her advantage. 3800s up. More substantial tap between 9 and 10. Speed is good though, ahead of Misha McNeil and ahead of Margot Boch. 0.4 of a second the margin, growing it steadily. This should be a top 10 run for Majestic Segen. 3500, so she didn't really add an awful lot out of turn 9 and below, but a 3500th of a second advantage. If she'd been clean from 9, that could probably been closer to half a second. Well, here is the exit of 9 again. Watch the runners. Just had to take a late steer, and their big hit on the wall as a legacy of that. That sent her a little sideways into turn 10. And then a flop off 10 down into the labyrinth. So that mistake in 9 followed her all the way to the line. Quick getaway for Dutch slider Carline Slipper, 28 years old. Carline, former brakewoman, finished in 10th place last week. This is only her 2nd Monobob World Series race. She competed in 1 non-World Cup race here in Innsbruck last season. She finished in 3rd place. She didn't have enough driving points to qualify for a World Cup race. Not a bad start, 6:02. 2nd best speed to Majestic Segen. Ooh, again, just a little late coming out. Hits the wall down into 10. 1700s back. This is going to leave her in 2nd place, halfway between Majestic Segen and Margot Boch of France. Oh, no, not halfway. She found speed at the bottom, got very close to the Russian sled. So just 700s back, Carline Slipper. Canadian coach Graham Richardson there running in to help. Former Dutch coach as well. Just a little tap up top. And the slower you're going, the more those hits hurt. And again, had to haul it off. And there's that big hit with the wall. Try kicking those ice walls and see how much spray you can get off and how much it hurts your foot. And then you'll realize the energy involved that comes out of the sled. Spoiler, don't try kicking the walls. Well, our 6th slider, Melanie Hassler of Switzerland. She finished in 8th place in last week's race. The 23-year-old had her first World Cup race here in these sleds, finished in 4th place. She did 4 races last year, including home in St. Moritz, and finished a good 10th in the World Championship. She steps into the sled to get in, 5:95, 2nd fastest start. Shows you how good a brakewoman and how strong a driver, pusher, Majestic Segen is. She's still got the best start at 5:90. There will be quicker starts. Melanie Hassler, 1300s back. And just that little tap, beginning of the upper labyrinth, and another one exiting 6 down into 7. Not enough to really push you offline. Not a bad exit out of the Kreisel. Only the 4th best speed And as with everything else, the sleds will have been set up with a fairly decent guess of what the track will demand from today, but it's not always easy to be spot on. At the line, third place, a 10th back, so our top three covered by 1/10 of a second. Majestic Segen leads from Carline Slipper and Melanie Hassler. And these last three athletes were 8th, 9th, 10th last week, may well find themselves in that sort of position again, battling with each other. It's going to be very close into this Kreisel. You see she's holding the waves, a nice constant line through there. And just a little late. Cuts a bit of ice on the exit. Tiniest of taps with the wall, but just offline going into 10. More to think about for the second heat. A little bit of sweeping protocol going on now after the 6th of our sleds. And being put down onto the ice is the sled for Christine de Bruyne of Canada. And the sleds are moved on their sides on the bunks to protect the runners, because otherwise you'd just scratch them completely, trying to move it around on the runners, and then laid on their side on the ice. And the reason they're only laid on their runners on the ice in the last couple of minutes is so that the runners don't get too cold. There's not a problem legally with the runners being too cold, but you want them effectively as warm as is allowed. Just helps reduce the friction. Think of the phrase hot knife through butter. The colder the butter, the hotter the knife, the better it cuts. 32-year-old Christine de Bruyne of Canada ready to go in this first heat of the Women's Monobob World Series. 3 races last year, best place 7th in Koenigsegg in the World Cup, 16th in the World Championships. She was 7th in the race here last week. And that should be a decent start, 5.99. Nice low heel return. Hurdlers will like that a lot. Keeps the energy as close to the ice as possible as she drives out of the blocks. So far start so far from our leader, Majestic Segen of Russia. How close are we going to get? 900s behind at the start. Only 1100s back. Now the gap comes back down. Best speed into the Kreisel. Here we go. Nice exit from Christine de Bruyne. Not too flat coming off the Kreisel. Top speed again. Should be in the green soon, but big skid, 9 to 10. That is going to slow her down. Rob the sled of energy. In the green now by 400s. Well, she finished 7th. Majestic was 9th. And at the line, 1700s up. So 55.68 slide. And so far, last week's form guide is a fairly decent barometer. Nobody who finished ahead of a rival has finished behind them in this first heat. You can hear the crackle of the spikes on the ice. And a little late exit from corner 9 puts her into the wall. The back bunk kicks out sideways.
Okay, sorry, baby, rush on dead.
Handled that well, didn't panic steer. Next up is her teammate Cynthia Appiah, finished in 4th place last week. 31-year-old former brakeman, did 4 races last year. In the non-World Cup race here in Innsbruck, she was 2nd, and she was a fine 5th in the World Championships at Altenburg. Not a new driver's favourite track. And again, Appiah should be right in there among the fastest starters. She holds the track record at 5.76, 5.82, very close. Considering it's still a moderately humid day, bit of fog around, maybe not the ideal start area. 2200s up on her teammate. We'll have a Canadian leader after this sled for sure. Likely a Canada 1-2. Little tap, exit 6. Actually sets her up all right for the Kreisel corner 7. Little tap in 8 though. Out of 9, nice and cleanly. Oh, and then a big hit. That was really unfortunate. Just a little bit of the wall sticking out, dragged the sled. And that's taken speed out of it that she's not going to get back. Will she be ahead at the line? No, 700's back. Well, it's that run down from corner 9 into 10. She was not steering away from the left-hand wall. And this is not a fine art. These ice walls, as you can see, do get a bit beaten up. Although the concrete below them is smooth and it doesn't have any high points. Watch here, the front bunk of the sled manages to find a high point sticking out. At this stage, you think, she's good, she's good, she's good. She's not steering. Boom, you see there's a little lump of ice sticking out there. And that was just unfortunate for Cynthia Appiah, otherwise she would be our leader. The Olympic tattoos, that is Alana Myers-Taylor, the 37-year-old winner of the race here last year. 4 races last year, 2 second places in Koenigsee and in Innsbruck. And coming back last year after giving birth to son Nico, he and her husband Nick Taylor both on tour. Nick with the US men's team, 583. Again, one of the most powerful push athletes of her generation, and as a result, one of the most powerful drivers of her generation as well. 6 4-man race, 6 monobob race. She has raced 4-man. 6 monobob race. She's really embraced this. Clearly her goal, as with a number of the athletes, is to come away from Beijing with 2 Olympic gold medals. And that would be a historic first opportunity for any female slider to be able to go for 2 gold medals. 1900s, the lead is hovering around the 2:10s mark. Oh, a little brush with the wall, but nothing too major. 55-51. Alana Myers-Taylor, the leader. Looks like Lauren Gibbs grabbing the sled as it's shot by. That's not Lauren. And her teammates helping there. Everybody very wrapped up. Pretty icy morning this morning in Innsbruck. And this is still not a refined art, even when they are doing what they normally do, leaping in off the side handle. The drivers all have a very slightly different technique. And Alana in well here. Watch the runners, they were still there in the grooves cut. And here, cuts a bit of ice coming off 9, takes a hit. Not too big a one. And then here at the line, diving just before the finish eye. The finish eye is just as the wall starts to slope down, the wooden wall. Saying hi to son Nico. He is apparently a very keen fan of watching ice sliding. Mr. Bunn, the baker's boy. That apple's not going to fall very far from the tree, is it? So again, our sweeping protocol after 9 sleds. They'll sweep again after the 12th. That means a slight hold at the top of the ice for Melissa Lotholtz, 29-year-old Canadian, finished 5th last week. Won the non-World Cup race here early last winter. Had 4 races last year, and again she performed really strongly in the World Championships. 7th place finish in Altenburg. Runs in through the sled, gets in neatly, 5.90. Again, a very good start from Melissa. 3rd best start, 4th best velocity. 1100s back. This is a top 3 run right now. Let's see what she can produce. Oh, big hit there coming out of corner 6. Zigging and zagging down to 7, and that means a lot of panic steering, gets it off 7. 2200s back, and that gap will grow. Only the 9th best speed. Little tap into the labyrinth. So this is going to be 5th, maybe 6th place around Carline Slipper. Oh, 200s behind Melanie Hassler. She's in 7th spot. Well, it all went wrong at the top of the track. The upper labyrinth just didn't get the timing right. Here's the exit of 6, brought it down way too early, too hard, hit the short wall on the inside, and then ping-ponged her way down into the Kreisel. Alana Myers-Taylor, the leader, from Christine de Bruyne and Cynthia Appiah. Majestic Segen heads the chasing pack. 10 sleds down in the second Women's Monobob World Series race of the year here in Innsbruck in Austria. Next up is the dominant force last year, Bruyne Walker. 2 World Cup wins on this track last year. She was 2nd overall. The Women's Monobob World Series was won by Nicole Vogt, who raced exclusively in the USA. 6th place last week for Bruyne Walker, a 5:87 getaway. Well, that powerful start is all part of the secret. 6th Monobob World Series race for her. 400s behind Alana Myers-Taylor. .400s is still the gap, only the 4th best speed. And now hasn't quite got the speed that Alana Myers-Taylor had. 9th best speed. Gap from 1st to 2nd is 1700ths of a second. Looks like this could well be a 2nd place run at the moment. Bruyne Walker dives to the line, and she is 100th ahead of Christine de Bruyne. She's in 2nd place. Matthias Burmer, yeah, happy with that? Not happy with that? Come on, guys, make your mind up. 55.67, so 0.3 of a second behind, ahead rather, of Melissa Lotholtz, who we just saw have that mistake in corner 6. And the Aussie is in 2nd place. So the first of 2 Australian sleds in the women's monobob. There'll be 2 in the women's bobsleigh race tomorrow as well. And Brie there, sitting quite well back. She's leaning back in the sled, and she's got her head very low indeed. And that helps to move the weight back in the sled, which is not a bad thing. Well, here is our world champion in women's monobob, Kaliki Humphries of the USA. 3 races and 3 wins last year in St. Moritz, Koenigsee and Altenburg. Finished 2nd to Alana Myers-Taylor last week. 5:94. And look how far back she is sitting in the sled. Well, that's quite possible to do. You can put the seat back wherever you want. You can move the foot braces further back. And then you can extend the steering cables that you use to guide the sled, and moving the weight further back towards the rear of the sled helps with balance. That might look a little different to everybody else, but if it's working for Kaliki, that is the only thing that matters. Good lines, as you'd expect. Humphries is probably the benchmark driver in women's bobsleigh. 2600s back though. Didn't have the speed at the start and has not found it down the track. 5th place, 55.78. Shucks, or similar, says Todd Hayes. So Alana Myers-Taylor leads for the USA. Kaliki Humphries in 5th, ahead of Majestic Segen. If you give away time at the start to your rivals, particularly on this track, you need to have extra special driving to get it back. And that is where the longer Beijing track will definitely not be a disadvantage for Kaliki. Little tap there as well from 6 into 7. How about 9? Watch the runners having to drive it off. So just a little late coming off there. And that puts her on the wrong side coming into turn 10. She gets tapped away and skidding in. Things to improve for Kaylee Humphries. Hand gesture, comme ci, comme ça. So 12 sleds down, and we sweep again, as we will after 15, 18, 21, and 24. And we now get to the first of our German sleds. And this is the driver who finished in 3rd place last week. 23-year-old Lara Nolte. 3 monobob races last year. Getting the sleds built to satisfy demand was the biggest drama for Ident, the company that makes these sleds last year. 2 second places, 1 third place in her 3 races, and bronze medal in the World Championships behind Stephanie Schneider and Kaylee Humphries. So Lara Nolte, 3rd place here last week. Let's see what the 23-year-old can do. Her 5th Monobob World Series race, 6 flat. So giving away time at the start. Leader Alana Myers-Taylor starting 17 hundredths of a second quicker. But there's no question at all that Lara Nolte can drive. Almost never out of the medals in her World Cup races to date. 2nd best speed. Gap's going to come down now. Top speed from Lara Nolte. .29 hundredths. Gap's not coming down by much. In fact, it's growing. So 9th at the start. She's going to be close to that at the finish. 6th place, 55.80. Well, she had a fraction better speed down the track than Alana Myers-Taylor, but not enough to make up for that 17 hundredths of a second deficit. That nearly doubled by the bottom of the track. And it shows that she drove well. The rule of thumb generally is that there's a 3-to-1 multiplier between the deficit at the start and the deficit at the bottom. Maybe a fraction less than that on such a short track. But if you don't have acceleration in a 100-meter sprint, then you are always going to be chasing those who come out of the blocks quicker. And that's pretty much what Innsbruck is. So the first of our German athletes is down. The next up is Olympic bobsleigh champion Mariama Yamanka. 8th in her first race, 9th in her second here. 5 races last year, the best of which was 4th place, which is also where she finished in the World Championships. But last week, 11th place. Well, she's certainly racking up the mileage in the sled. She may not be a convert yet, but she is determined to give it everything she has. Just leans it into turn 1. 6.03 getaway. Nice exit out of corner 3, but the gap's gone out from 20 to 34 hundredths of a second. Little tap and a little late flop out of 6. Only the 11th best speed. And a skid out of the Kreisel. The gap continues to grow. This is not a top 10 run. Oh, and a late flop there as well. And she's late in the labyrinth. And she's going to have to work hard to keep the runners on the ice. And that takes speed out of the sled as well. 11th, exactly where she finished last week. 56.09. So she's ahead of Margot Boch of France, Misha McNeil of Great Britain, and Ying Qing of China. But behind Melissa Lotholtz of Canada, who's in 10th spot. Still not really feeling the love for these sleds. But it's an Olympic medal. You have got to give it everything. And don't doubt that she is giving it everything. And if she unlocks the secret of getting the speed and finding the feel for them, then look out, world. So from one German to another to our 3rd German, 24-year-old Kaliki. She was 7th in the first race here and 6th in the second. She had 4 races last year, didn't get a medal. The rest of them was in 4th place. 6th in the World Championships as well. And Kim was just behind Mariama Yamanka last week in 12th place. 6:02, 100th of a second quicker than her teammate. So all 3 Germans starting 6-0 for Laura Nolte. 6:03 Mariama Yamanka, 6:02 Kim Kaliki. Now, all of them are capable of medals and gold medals in women's bob. In monobob, as of now, it's not really happening. 7th best speed. This is a top 10 run at the moment. Little error coming out of 9, hits the wall going into 10. 4,400s back, the gap continues to grow. And at the line, 11th place ahead of Yamanka by a 10th. And behind Melissa Lotholtz by 200ths of a second. Well, there's no question that she knows how to drive a normal 2-seat bob. But like Mariama Yamanka, and actually to a degree like Laura Nolte, getting a handle on these monobobs is proving a little bit more of a difficult task. And for the drivers, particularly those who weren't brake women to start with, learning to start the sled on your own is a big factor. It's that mechanics of getting the body to work in your favor. Not just some of it, all of it. Using the weight, getting the upper body involved, and getting those legs speeding across the ice. And then out of 9, big hit on the wall. Squares her up going into 10. Puts her sort of back on the line she almost wanted, but a little late into turn 10. Alana Myers-Taylor leading here in Innsbruck. First heat, race 2 of the Women's Monobob World Series. Brianna Walker, Christine de Bruin, the chasing 2. Track hold for cleaning on this snowy morning. And although it's not actively snowing now, the protocol is in place and is likely to be all day long. As we get to our 16th starter, this is Anastasia Makarova of Russia. The 23-year-old finished in 13th place in last week's race, did 3 races in Monobob World Series last season. Her best result, a 6th place finish in Winterberg. Now, see, she's not using the body the way I see a lot of the athletes. She's just digging in and pushing. 6:09. I'm sure that their brakeman and their push team will be working on Anastasia's technique, digging the body into the sled, leaning in right forward with the hands behind on the handles, using that whole body weight to break the inertia of the sled, to get it moving without falling on your face. It's not easy. 2600s back at the start, 5800s back now. She's our 16th sled, only has the 14th best speed. Big high sweeping line in 10. The lines are good, but the speed is not. And this is going to leave her right out at the tail of the field. Anastasia Makarova, 15th of 16 sleds. It wasn't the worst start we've seen, and there weren't catastrophic mistakes. So I always say, like in racing cars, if there's no obvious driving errors and it's still not quick, you look at what's going on between the track surface and the vehicle. In auto racing, that's the tyres. In ice sliding, that's the runners. Have they been set up right? Ooh, big height there. That was late in the labyrinth. Have they just got the wrong runners? Well, next up is Katie Bile of Austria. 28 years old, 3rd in the first race here. Did 4 races last season, 2 third-place finishes, 8th in the Worlds, but last week only 14th. A 6.09 start, that's exactly the same as we've just seen from Anastasia Makarova. And that leaves her a quarter of a second behind Alana Myers-Taylor as she sits down. And no matter how well she drives, it won't be until below the Kreisel that she stops losing time. Oh! And a hit out of 6 is the last thing she needed. 15th best speed out of 17 sleds now. This is going entirely the wrong way for Carline Bile. Oh, and again, did not need that second hit into turn 10. She's going to be right down at the tail of the field with Makarova and Yingqing of China. 16th behind Anastasia Makarova. 200ths back. Well, that is not a great run for Carline Bile. And at the top of the track, that looked very much like Coach Wolfgang Stampfer. Glad to have him back. Now, she's saying her visor was fogging up. Well, that would explain quite a lot. Late out of 6. Skids, hits into 7, out of 9. A little late here as well. And although the drivers, it's not, you're not driving blind like you've never seen it before. It's the same bit of ice that was sticking out that Cynthia Appiah clipped. You do still need those references at speed. For Romania now, Andrea Greco finished 15th last week, which is not the sort of form she showed last year. 6th in the first World Cup race here, 8th in the second. She did 6 Monobob World Series races last year. Finished in the top 5 in the overall season standings. Was 11th in the World Championships. And in this World Cup field, she is actually the most experienced monobob racer. This is her 8th Monobob World Series race. 5.95. And again, that's what made Andrea Greco a good brakewoman. She's still a strong pusher, 1200s back from Alana Myers-Taylor at the start. What can she produce here in the drive? Well, this is looking smooth. Nice exit of 6. There's a little bit of snow falling. Shouldn't be too much of an issue. Nice out of the Kreisel as well. 3/10 back, but where is the speed? Only 14th best. No major dramas coming out of 9 down into 10. Standard late exit tap. 4500s back. It's going all entirely the wrong way for Andrea Greco. 7th at the start, 12th at the line. That's Coach Paul Niagu. Without whom, you have to say, there would be no Romanian sliding. He eats, sleeps, lives and breathes this sport, based in Winterberg, Paul Niagu, and has been the driving force of Romanian bobsledding for years. Well, there's the exit out of 9. Skidding, cuts a lot of ice, and then has that little tap down into 10. Ducks ahead, though, sticks her head down out of the airstream, even for a fraction of a second. She's one of the tallest athletes. You can see they're getting snapped around down in the labyrinth. It's into 13. Big speed down there. 112 kilometers an hour. So after Andrea Greco, we sweep again. 18 sleds down out of our 25. 2 spots left in the second heat. Only the fast 20 will go through. So who will get bumped and who will make it out of the remaining 7 sleds? Well, money should be on this driver making it through. 26-year-old Russian Lubov Chennik. Finished in 16th place last week. Very new to monobob, though. She only raced in the World Championships in Altenburg last year. Didn't do any of the other monobob World Series races. She finished 17th in the Worlds, 16th last week. So this is her 2nd World Series race. Again, not the biggest of athletes. So she gets that big body rotation into the sled. 6:05. Well, she's right in there swinging against the Germans. And again, although she's petite, or petiter than some of the athletes, sitting well back to get that weight closer to the center of moment in the sled. 14th best at the start. Let's see what she's got in terms of pace. Only the 18th best speed. So this is the slowest sled so far. 11th best speed is better. Here we go. Nice exit from 9 to 10. Now, how far can she climb up the order? Still 14th on the splits. How close will she be at the line to the top 10? Still 14th. That was pretty static. They've obviously changed what they're doing in the braking area from last week, where all the sleds were shooting out up onto the rubber. Everybody getting slowed with her Valentino Rossi shark helmet. Well, not a bad exit out of corner 9. Coming down the track into 10, and here the final corner, sweeping down out of the finish curve. Just avoids the line. And then pops up immediately on the brakes. There's Chennik. Well, 14th place for her. 100th behind Yamanka. There will be a lot of changes going on. Simi Adiabo next for Nigeria. 40-year-old, only raced in Park City and Lake Placid last year. That was in the North American races in the Monobob World Series. She finished 10th overall. The non-World Cup field races were given the same points weighting as a full World Cup field. And so when you're racing in North America, all those races counted just the same as racing here against the champions. It's only her second Monobob, beg pardon, her 6th Monobob race. 6:39 for Simi. Finished in 27th place in last week's race. So the deal for her will be to try and make the cut. She is our 20th slider, so she will be in the race when she steps out of the sled. Whether she will be in another 15 minutes or not is entirely dependent on this. 20th at the start, 20th speed so far, skid there. She has raced predominantly in North America, so even after 2 weeks, this Innsbruck track is still fairly new to her. Keeping it all in one piece down through the labyrinth. And that's far from a beginner's run, but a 57.56 is likely not to see her in the race. 20th at the moment. So, Simi Adiabo from Nigeria. So, bobsledding and monobobbing. And Kwasi Frimpong will also be heading into World Cup action soon for Ghana. So, more African nations coming into the winter sports in sliding as well. So 20 sleds down, 5 remain. Who gets into the race? Well, next up is our second Aussie, Ashley Werner, 29-year-old former brakewoman. This is only her second monobob race. Didn't compete in the monobob last year. She's been driving for a couple of seasons now. Started off as a brakewoman for Bruyne Walker. 6:09 getaway. So same as Katy Bile, Anastasia Makarova. What she doesn't have is Katy Bile's intimate knowledge of this track. But a 16th best start, 15th best speed. At the moment, she is driving herself into the race. And last week's form should be a good indicator. She's late, she's very late coming into the labyrinth, gets away with it. As long as she didn't have a massive panic steer, she should be in, she is in. There's Heath Spence, the coach. So 56.40, she is in, and Simi Adiabo has discovered within a couple of minutes of stepping out of the sled, she's not even actually got to the finish dock, she is out. And we have a tie at the tail of the field with Ashley Werner in 18th. Oh, just catching her foot on the back, the little seat back. It's not a big seat. It's only, well, probably not even 6 inches high, a little half-moon shaped piece of plastic that sits upright that the driver braces themselves against. Your backside is wedged against that. Your feet on blocks, footrests in the front under the cowl. You brace yourself in the sled. There's no seat belt, and you can't be hanging onto the D-rings for comfort. Well, good pictures. Probably wasn't the greatest feeling there for a moment for Ashley Werner, but she is in the race. We have a tie for 19th, so either Mingming of China is in, or Bile and Yingqing of China are in. 20 sleds down, Alana Myers-Taylor leads a pretty close battle for the medals. Don't count out Kaylee Humphries or Laura Nolte yet. But right now, it's about making the race. So Mingming, 26-year-old, did not race outside China last season, so this is her second Monobob World Series start. 20th last week, made the cut. And a 5.97, not a bad start at all in the top 10 starters. And that's exactly the sort of getaway she needs to make this field. Only one World Cup season, and that was 2 years ago, so limited experience of Innsbruck. Of course, everybody who raced World Cup last year came to Innsbruck a lot. 7th best speed, drifting away. But this is a decent looking run, long drift from 9 down to 10. More in control in the lower labyrinth than we just saw from Ashley Werner. She's in the race. She is in 15th place and out. Not yet, actually, because they're tied for 20th, Bile and Yingqing. So right now we have 21 sleds in our top 20. Mingming safely in the race in 15th. Well, finished in 20th place last week. Her teammate was 24th. They are currently both in the race. Exeter 9. She had a little steer and then decided she didn't need it. I think she's happy with that one. So Melanie Hassler of Switzerland is in the race. What about Martina Fontenay, her teammate? Just missed the cut a week ago, Martina. 4 races last year, 2nd and 3rd in the first 2, 8th and 9th, 4th overall in the Monobob World Series, then 9th in the World Championships. But last week missed the cut. And 6.12 not helping her here. 21st at the start, but up to 19th place on the splits. So in the upper labyrinth, she is driving herself into the race. 17th best speed, and she is in at the moment. And if she stays in, she will boot out Bile and Yingqing of China. 19th best speed, and a big mistake there. Big height in 10. It's all just getting away from her a little below corner 9. How close will she be? She's not in, is she? No, she's not in. As Rico Peder says goodbye, that is the end of Monobob for the day for Martina Fontenay. So the 35-year-old Swiss will not get a second heat with the glare-reducing yellow visor.
Giada Andreucci aus Italien mit der Startnummer 24, die nächste.
Well, the pictures tell their own story, and she caught that bit that's sticking out. And then big height in 10. Haven't seen anybody up that high, but that's because she was backed in sideways. Doesn't look like she's feeling 100% herself. Giada Andreucci of Italy, our penultimate slider. Her second Monobob World Series race. Her first ever official race in these sleds was last week. 26-year-old. She missed the cut last week as well, was 22nd, just behind Martina Fontenay. So again, if she gets into the race on this run, you'll see that there is very definite progress. Flies into the sled, that's a great launch. Italian Air Force athlete, 6:31. Well, quicker than Adiabo, but that is the second slowest start we've seen, and that is going to leave her struggling for pace all the way down. But right now, 23rd at the start, 23rd on the splits, so ahead of the Nigerian sled, but the Italian not making the field yet. 17th best speed. Not a bad exit from 9 to 10. Is this going to drag her into the race? 20th spot, are 9 tenths behind, but she's already a second adrift. So she's not going to make it in. 23rd spot, where she was last week. No, she was 22nd last week. So still, Cathy Bile and Yingqing of China are hanging by a thread. They were 100th behind Ashley Werner, a further 100th behind Anastasia Makarova, and they are tied for 20th. And Giada Andreucci does not boot them out. That's a great hypermotion shot. You appreciate it in real time, but when you see it in super slow-mo, shows just the athleticism of these athletes. Out of 9, watch the runner tips. Well, she was fairly happy with her line. It takes a little tap. Down into 10 on track. Well, a little more speed at the start. That would definitely help her. That was a pretty good looking drive, all things considered. And the final sweep of the track before our last slider, Kim Yuran of Korea. 29 years old. Because of the pandemic last season, no Chinese athletes slid outside of China, and the Koreans didn't make it to Europe until post-Christmas New Year break. So she's had 3 Monobob World Cup races, best of which was 4th place in Koenigsegg. And again, our best wishes to everybody at the Koenigsegg track, which was partly wiped away in the devastating flooding earlier this year across various parts of Germany. 25th place last week, Kim Yuran can't get into the sled. Luckily, it's still traveling straight as it comes out of the spurs. And again, she is sat very well back in the sled. No need to accommodate a brake woman. And as a result, you can put the weight wherever you like. And that's exactly what race car designers want to do. It's exactly what you do when you have to ballast a sled as well. You put the ballast, A, as low down as you can, and B, as close to the center of the sled as possible. However, here, trying to move a little bit of weight further back to get it over the rear. 23rd at the start, 24th on the splits at the moment. So Kim Yuran is not going to make the field here today. And 24th at the line ahead of Adiabo of Nigeria. And that completes the first heat for the women's monobob. We know, well, having said earlier that nobody was shooting up onto the rubber, Kim Yuran, the final slider, does exactly that. Well, we know now our 21 sliders who will go through into the top 20. And our final slider is not one of those. Gets her foot hooked up on the back of the seat. Yeah. Great shot from behind. And that's what it looks like from in front. Took 2 attempts to unhook herself from that little seat back. And these things built for speed, not comfort. After all, you're only sitting in them for under a minute. Well, our first heat leader is Alana Myers-Taylor. Last week's winner is this week's leader, but probably any one of the top 5, maybe even the top half dozen, could take medals. First to third, 1700s. First to 6th, 2900s. It doesn't take much of an error from anyone in the top 3 to give away a medal position. Here's how they look then. Alana Myers-Taylor from Brianna Walker and Christine de Bruin. Those are the top 3 right now, but Cynthia Appiah, Kaylee Humphries and Lara Nolte will be snapping at their heels. And behind them, some very close battles. Carline Slipper, 300s ahead of Melanie Hassler, who's 2 ahead of Lotholtz, 2 ahead of Kaliki, and then look from Andrea Greco back, another tight battle. 1300s down to Margot Boch, and Misha McNeil heading a similarly tight battle. Katy Bile and Chennik tied exactly, so 21 sleds go through. Martina Fontenay, Giada Angiucci, Kim Yoran and Simi Adiabo will be watching the second heat, and you can too. Join me and hopefully John Morgan at 11:30 local, 10:30 GMT, 05:30 Eastern for the second and deciding heat here in Innsbruck.
Let's go.